Most people believe the quantum field responds to desire, that if you want something badly enough, think about it often enough, or visualize it clearly enough, reality will eventually rearrange itself. And when it doesn't happen, they assume the universe is slow, blocked, or somehow testing them. But the truth is far more uncomfortable than that, because the field is never ignoring you. It's responding precisely to what you're emitting. Here's the part almost no one explains clearly. The quantum field does not organize itself around what you want. It organizes itself around what your system is stable in, the emotional baseline you return to, the identity you default to when nothing is forcing you to perform, the internal state that feels normal to your body, even when your mind says it wants something else. This is why manifestation feels inconsistent for so many people. You can desire a new reality while still being neurologically anchored to the old one. You can affirm abundance while your nervous system is calibrated to lack. You can visualize expansion while your identity is still organized around control, urgency, or survival. From the field's perspective, those mixed signals don't create movement, they create noise. Physics already understands this principle. In any system, coherence determines how information moves. When elements are synchronized and energy transfers cleanly. When they aren't, energy scatters. Internally, the same law applies. Intensity doesn't amplify a signal. Coherence does, and most people skip coherence entirely, rushing straight from desire to effort. Spiritually, this has always been called alignment. But alignment is often misunderstood. It's not positivity. It's not belief. It's not forcing yourself to feel a certain way. Alignment is when thought, emotion, body, and identity stop contradicting each other. When your inner state becomes predictable to itself, reality becomes predictable in response. The uncomfortable truth is that the quantum field has been answering you all along, not to your intentions when you're motivated, but to your baseline when you're not to what you hope for, but to what you consistently embody. And once you see this, it becomes impossible to unsee how your reality has been faithfully mirroring you the entire time. This raises a much more important question. If the field doesn't respond to wanting, what does it actually respond to? And more importantly, how do you shift that internal signal without forcing, pretending, or burning yourself out? That's what we need to unpack next. The quantum field responds to coherence, not desire, not belief, not emotion in isolation. Coherence is the state where your thoughts, emotions, body, and identity are no longer pulling in different directions. It's the internal agreement that tells reality what is real for you now. Most people underestimate how powerful this is because coherence doesn't feel dramatic. There's no rush, no spike, no emotional high. In fact, it often feels boring compared to the intensity of wanting. But from the field's perspective, coherence is everything. It's the difference between a clear signal and static. Neuroscience explains this through the concept of a baseline state. Your nervous system always returns to a familiar set point, a default rhythm of emotion, tension, and expectation. You might briefly imagine a different future, but if your body keeps returning to the same internal environment, that environment is what the field reads as truth. The field doesn't respond to temporary states. It responds to what's consistent. This is why visualization alone rarely produces lasting change. Visualization creates a momentary image, but coherence creates a stable identity. And identity is what collapses probability into experience. When your inner state is predictable, reality has something solid to organize around. Spiritually, this has always been understood as embodiment. Not thinking abundance, but living from it. Not hoping for peace gone, but operating from it. The field mirrors what you're grounded in, not what you aspire to visit occasionally. That's why effort-based manifestation often feels exhausting. You're trying to override your baseline instead of reconditioning it. Here's where most people get stuck. They try to force coherence through control. They monitor their thoughts obsessively. They correct emotions as soon as discomfort appears. They treat alignment like a performance. But coherence doesn't come from suppression. It comes from integration. When nothing inside you is being fought, resisted, or hidden, the signal stabilizes on its own. This is also why letting go works. Not because detachment is magic, but because detachment removes contradiction. When you stop gripping an outcome, the nervous system relaxes. When the nervous system relaxes, coherence increases. And when coherence increases, the field responds faster, not slower. If manifestation has ever felt like it was almost there but never quite landing, this is usually why. The desire was present. The effort was present. But the internal signal was fragmented. Once coherence becomes your baseline, reality doesn't need convincing. It adjusts. Now the real question becomes practical. How do you stabilize coherence in daily life, especially when old patterns, stress, and external pressure try to pull you back into fragmentation? That's where the process continues. Here's the paradox most people aren't ready to hear. Wanting something intensely is often the very thing that delays it, not because desire is wrong, but because of what desire usually implies at a deeper level. Wanting signals separation. It tells the nervous system that something is missing now, and the field responds to that sense of absence with precision. When you want something badly, your attention collapses around the gap between where you are and where you think you should be. The body tightens. Time feels heavy. Patience erodes. Even positive thoughts start carrying urgency underneath them. And urgency is not neutral. It conditions the system into a state of chasing rather than receiving. Neuroscience explains this clearly. The brain doesn't differentiate between excitement and stress when both are fueled by anticipation. Both activate similar circuits related to prediction and control. That's why manifestation driven by wanting often feels draining. You're constantly monitoring reality for signs, evaluating progress, adjusting your inner state. The system never settles. And without settling, coherence can't stabilize. Spiritually, this is why so many traditions emphasize surrender, not as passivity, but as precision. When you stop reaching, the signal clarifies. When you stop needing proof, the nervous system exits survival mode. And when survival mode turns off, the body finally communicates safety to the field. Safety is what allows probabilities to collapse cleanly. This is also why detachment feels like speed once you've experienced it. Not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped signaling lack. You didn't lower your standards. You removed contradiction. The desire didn't disappear. It transformed into expectancy without tension. That shift alone changes how reality responds. Most people try to jump straight to this phase by forcing detachment, which never works. You can't fake relaxation. The body knows when it's pretending. Real detachment only happens when coherence is already present. When your internal state is stable enough that the outcome no longer feels like a threat to your identity. That's why this step is skipped so often. Letting go feels counterintuitive to a mind trained to believe effort equals progress. But in quantum terms, effort without coherence adds noise. Silence, on the other hand, sharpens the signal. When wanting relaxes into knowing, time behaves differently. Events no longer feel distant. Opportunities appear without strain. Movement happens without the constant sense of pushing. And from the outside, it looks like things are finally flowing, even though the real work happened internally. But coherence isn't maintained automatically. Life will test it, not as punishment, but as feedback. Stress, uncertainty, and old habits will try to pull the system back into fragmentation. How you respond to that pressure determines whether the signal holds. That's where the next phase becomes critical. Coherence is fragile in the beginning, not because it's weak, but because it's unfamiliar. Once your internal state starts stabilizing, life doesn't pause to accommodate it. Old pressures resurface, external demands increase. Situations arise that used to trigger automatic reactions. And this is where the field gives feedback, not to test you, but to see which signal you return to under pressure. Most people assume coherence means staying calm at all times. That misunderstanding causes them to fail right here. Coherence isn't emotional perfection. It's consistency. It's what you return to after disruption. Stress will happen. Doubt will appear. The question isn't whether you feel those states. It's whether you reorganize yourself around them or let them pass through without rebuilding the old identity. Neuroscience describes this as state recovery. A regulated system doesn't avoid activation, it recovers quickly. The faster you return to your baseline, the stronger that baseline becomes. Each time you choose presence instead of reaction, the nervous system learns that safety exists without control, and when the body learns safety, coherence deepens automatically. Spiritually, this is where embodiment replaces intention. You stop asking, "Am I aligned?" and start noticing how you respond when things don't go your way immediately. Do you contract? Do you overthink? Do you rush to fix the feeling? Or do you allow the sensation without narrating it into a story? The field responds to the latter, because allowance removes internal contradiction. This is also why small, ordinary moments matter more than rituals or techniques. How you answer a message, how you move through delay, how you handle uncertainty without dramatizing it internally. These moments are where coherence is either reinforced or diluted. Reality doesn't reorganize itself around what you practice occasionally. It reorganizes around what you practice when no one is watching. Many people unintentionally break their own signal by checking for results too often. They scan reality for confirmation, measuring progress mentally. That scanning reintroduces urgency. Urgency tightens the system, and the moment the system tightens, coherence weakens. The field doesn't respond to checking. It responds to settling. Stabilizing the signal means letting coherence become ordinary, unremarkable, boring even. When your internal state no longer depends on evidence, evidence begins to appear, not all at once, but cleanly. Opportunities align, timing sharpens, decisions feel simpler, not because life got easier, but because resistance decreased. This is where many people say manifestation suddenly feels automatic. In truth, it's not automatic. It's uninterrupted. Nothing inside is contradicting the direction anymore. The signal holds through pressure. And when it holds, the field has no reason not to respond. What happens next is not dramatic. It's precise. And that's where everything begins to move. When coherence becomes your default, reality doesn't respond loudly. It responds efficiently. Timing sharpens. Movement feels cleaner. Things that once required effort begin arranging themselves with less friction. From the outside, and it may look like luck. From the inside, it feels like confirmation that something has already locked into place. This is the moment many people misunderstand. They assume the shift happened suddenly. In truth, the response only appears sudden because the internal signal stopped changing. Once coherence stabilizes, the field no longer receives mixed instructions. It doesn't need repetition. It doesn't need persuasion. It simply adjusts to what's now consistent. This is why real manifestation feels quiet. There's no urgency to announce it, no impulse to chase or explain. You move differently. You decide faster. You trust your timing without needing proof. The future stops feeling distant because your internal state is no longer anchored to the past. What matters most here is not excitement, but maintenance. Coherence doesn't collapse because life challenges you. It collapses when you abandon yourself under pressure. Staying aligned isn't about control, it's about recognition. Recognizing when old patterns try to re-enter and choosing not to rebuild them. This is also where many people lose momentum, not because they failed, but because they lacked structure to stabilize the shift. When the nervous system is still adapting, external noise can pull you back into familiar reactions. Not permanently, but enough to delay what was already in motion. That's exactly why quantum rebirth was created. Not as a method to force change, but as a framework to stabilize it. It helps you understand which phase you're in, how to maintain coherence under pressure, and how to anchor a new identity before the world fully reflects it. Alongside it, the Quantum Grimoire gives you a practical way to integrate this state through conscious writing and daily grounding, so the signal you've stabilized doesn't dissolve when life speeds up. If this video resonated, it's likely because coherence is already forming. You don't need to start something new. You need to protect what's emerging. You'll find Quantum Rebirth and the Quantum Grimoire in the pinned comment, for whenever you feel ready to deepen the shift that's already underway. Nothing here requires force. Nothing needs to be chased. The field has already received the signal. There's a phase that comes after coherence stabilizes that almost no one expects. It's not excitement. It's not celebration. It's silence. A subtle internal quiet where the urge to explain what's happening disappears. And for many people, this silence feels unsettling because they've been conditioned to believe that progress must be loud, visible, and emotionally charged. But silence is not emptiness. Silence is integration. When the quantum field begins responding consistently, the nervous system no longer needs to scan for confirmation. The mind stops rehearsing explanations. The identity stops asking for reassurance. What replaces all of that is a calm certainty that doesn't need language. This is one of the clearest indicators that a shift has locked in, and also the moment when many people accidentally disrupt it. They talk too soon. They analyze too much. They look for external validation to confirm an internal truth that has already settled. And in doing so, they reintroduce noise into a system that was finally quiet enough to respond cleanly. From a scientific perspective, this silence corresponds to reduced cognitive interference. Fewer internal narratives competing for attention. Less prediction, less correction, less self-monitoring. The brain enters a state where perception sharpens because it's no longer overloaded. Decisions feel obvious, not because you've calculated them, but because nothing inside you is arguing anymore. Spiritually, this is what many traditions point to when they talk about knowing without effort. Not intuition as a flash, but intuition as a baseline. The quiet confidence that you're already standing in the next version of yourself, even if the external details are still catching up. This is also why true manifestation often unfolds privately at first. Not because it needs to be hidden, but because it's still stabilizing. Just like a seed underground, announcing it too early doesn't make it grow faster. It just exposes it before it's rooted. If you find yourself wanting to pull back, simplify, or move more quietly right now, that's not regression. That's intelligence. The system knows that coherence deepens in stillness, and stillness allows the field to keep responding without interference. The mistake would be trying to recreate intensity, excitement, or urgency just to feel like something is happening. Something is happening. It's just no longer chaotic enough to be obvious. And when you allow this phase to complete, the external movement that follows feels natural instead of dramatic. Opportunities don't crash into your life. They fit. Decisions don't feel risky. They feel timely. You don't need to convince yourself you're on the right path. The path feels like it's already beneath your feet. This is when people later say, "I don't know how it happened so fast." What they're really describing is how long it had already been settled internally. And once reality begins responding from this level of coherence, it doesn't stop responding, unless you stop honoring the state that created it.